Alright class, ayan, so hello again, and this is the third lesson for chapter 2, and uh, lesson 3 is entitled What Factors Cause the Different Shapes and Structure of the Earth. So ano-ano ba yung mga factors no, na nagiging dahilan kung bakit meron tayong iba't ibang geological landscape, no, shape and structure no sa ating planeta no. And for this video lesson, so these are the learning objectives. So you have to describe how rocks undergo different processes of weathering, and you also have to explain how the products of weathering are carried away by erosion and deposition. Now, as we all know guys, that the earth is constantly changing through the years, and the Earth's crust is constantly altered physically according to continental drift theory, which is proposed by Alfred Wegener. And from this uh, from this theory, it stated that the Earth was once a giant landmass, which is called as Pangaea. And this giant landmass was broken down into several continents because of the movement beneath the Earth's surface. Now, the question is, and let me give you a question now. So, if continents came from a giant landmass, can you imagine how mountains, volcanoes, and soil formed or are formed? No? Yeah. So that question will be answered as we go along the lesson. No. Anyway, so just to give you an outline for this lesson, no, we have here exogenic processes and endogenic processes. But for this video, we will be focusing on exogenic processes. And under exogenic processes, so we have your weathering, and then we have two types of weathering, or physical and chemical weathering, and then we also have here erosion, and last is mass wasting. And then for the next video na isasend ko sa inyo, we have endogenic processes, so mas mahaba yon. And this includes the following: we have magmatism and plutonism, and then plate tectonics, seafloor spreading, isostasy, and plate boundaries. Now, as you can see, no, if na observe nyo, no, when we talk about exogenic processes, from the name itself, no, exogenic processes, ibig sabihin, these are the processes that is happening on the surface of the Earth. While endogenic processes are the processes that happens inside the Earth, no, or beneath the surface of the Earth. Anyway, again, we will be focusing on this video, no, video lesson. We will be focusing on exogenic processes. So let's proceed. Now, when we talk about exogenic processes, so these are processes that are caused by exogenic factors or agents supplying energy for the activities located at the Earth's surface. So as simple as that, no? So ito yung mga activities na matatagpuan, ito yung mga processes na nangyayari at the Earth's surface or on the surface of the Earth. And now, since these processes happens in the surface of the Earth, it includes geologic phenomena and processes that originate externally to the Earth's surface. Now, what are the exogenic processes? So we have the first one, weathering. And when we talk about weathering, it is the breaking down of rocks into smaller pieces. Now, although kanina doon sa naunang video, ito ay na-discuss ko naman na, no? But anyway, no, pag sinabi again nating weathering, ito yung proseso na kung saan yung malalaking tipak ng bato ay unti-unting lumiliit, unti-unti silang naghihiwa-hiwalay, nagbi-break, no? And eventually, makakapag-produce tayo na mas mga maliliit pa, no, na mga pieces of rocks. Now, all rocks undergo weathering, and it takes a long period of time. And there are three different types of rock weathering. We have mechanical weathering, chemical weathering and biological weathering. Nga lang kasi since sa libro nyo, dalawa lang naman yung type ng weathering na i-discuss. So mag-stick tayo dun sa dalawa, no? We have physical weathering and chemical weathering. Now with regards to physical weathering, so these are the this type of weathering is the process of rocks breaking apart without changing their chemical composition. Ibig sabihin, ito yung type ng weathering na kung saan nabibreak yung rocks without changing their chemical composition. So, physically lang na, ayun, na nagbe-break, no? Walang nagbabago sa kanyang chemical composition. Ano-ano yung mga halimbawa ng physical weathering? Una ay ang frost heaving or wedging. So, some part of the globe, definitely, iba yung klima, no? Or, kumbaga, may season talaga na dadating na talagang nagkakaroon ng yelo. Now, with regards to this, no, frost heaving and wedging, now, soil containing water that expands when frozen, moving the soil upward. So, since dito sa mga lugar na to, no, although sa Pilipinas, syempre, hindi naman nangyayari to kasi nga, nasa malapit tayo sa equator, definitely mainit, no, sa atin sa bansa, no. Now sa ibang part, no, ng ating other parts of the globe, syempre may climate nga na kung saan talagang sobrang bumababa ang temperature at nagkakaroon ng yelo, no. Now dito, no, doon sa mga lugar na yon, so alam naman natin na ang lupa is merong tubig. Now, since bumababa nga ang temperature, so may kakayahan na itong tubig na to ay mag-solidify, no? Maging yelo. Yan. And dahil nga nagiging yelo, definitely itong mga tubig na to na nasa lupa, sila yung nagiging dahilan kung bakit nagkakaroon ng opening sa lupa. And once na magkaroon na ng opening, definitely yung mga rocks na nandun sa lupa ay ma-expose. And once na ma-expose, ito na nga yung dahilan para sila ay mag-undergo ng weathering, no? Para ito yung magiging dahilan para mag-break etong mga rocks na to. And even etong mga yellow na to, sila rin mismo, no, etong mga yellow rin mismo ay maaaring makatulong para mag-break etong mga rocks na ito, no? Halimbawa, ito, we have here frost wedging. So, frost wedging caused by the repeated freeze-thaw cycle of water in extreme climates, and most rocks have small cracks in them called joints or tectonic joints. Dahil nga merong mga opening, etong mga malalaking tipak ng bato na to, no, definitely kapag umulan, syempre may mga tubig na pupunta dun sa mga butas na yon na masistay, masastuck diyan sa mga bato. And then kung halimbawa nagbago ang temperature, ay nga lumamig, no, magkaroon ng yelo, so etong mga tubig na to ay mabubuo, no, magiging yelo, and maaring ito ay maging dahilan para mag-break etong mga rocks na to. O di naman kaya dahil nga sa pabago-bagong panahon, lalamig, iinit, no, tataas, bababa ang temperature, nagiging marupok ang mga bato. Kaya nagbe-break siya, no? So that is an example of physical weathering. Another example of physical weathering is plant roots, no? Physical weathering, no, kung paano nabi-break ang mga rocks, no, without changing their chemical composition. Now, with regards to plant roots, huge trees that produce large roots anchor themselves on rocks and force their way into them, no? So ito, malamang nakakita na kayo ng mga gantong mga bato or halaman na kung saan parang nandun sa pagitan ng malalaking bato, no? And ito nga, no, since kasi etong mga plants na to, so as this plant grows bigger, the roots also grow bigger, and it tend to push open the cracks, making them wider and deeper. And eventually, these rocks will be fractured, no? Fractured. Yan. So magkakaroon ng breaking of rocks kasi nga kapag lumalaki ang puno or di naman kaya ang ugat, so mas mapupush, no, na ma-break etong mga rocks na ito. Next, another example of physical weathering is burrowing animals. Now, there are animals that dig holes on the ground and expose rocks, no? Kasi nga nagbungkal nga sila ng lupa. And it could also be an animal like, for example, rabbit, no? Ito mga rabbit na to, syempre they burrows into a crack in the rock, and as it constantly burrows and makes the crack bigger, it ends up ripping the rocks apart, no? Or ripping the rocks apart. Yan. And with that, yun nga, maaring ma-break itong mga rocks na to. Makapag-produce tayo ng sediments, no? So ilan lang 'yan, no, sa mga animals na maaring makasira, maging dahilan ng pagkasira ng mga bato at makapag-produce ng sediments. Now, next we have here example of physical weathering. We have abrasion, and it occurs when rocks rub against each other and become rounded. Ito, commonly, malamang, napansin nyo na to kapag kayo ay nabibisita sa mga ilog, no? Or halimbawa, sa mga beach, no? Na kung saan hindi sand ang makikita, kundi mga bato. Now, ang common na shape na makikita nyo sa mga bato na ito, no? Sa mga anyong tubig na ito ay round. Bakit round? Kasi dahil nga sila ay nakakasama o sumasama sa tubig, definitely, etong tubig na ito yung nagiging dahilan para yung mga bato ay magkiskisan, magbungguan. Kaya, ang tendency tuloy ng shape ng mga rocks na ito ay it will become rounded. No? Now, rocks in rivers, seas, valleys, mountains, or deserts degrade or disintegrate due to friction or repeated collision or impact. No? So dahil nga sa bungguan, no, kiskisan, maaring ito ay mag-break. Next. Ayan. So next physical or type of, or should I say example of physical weathering is temperature. Or pwede rin natin sabihin na factor, no? Mga factor na pwedeng makasira sa mga bato ay yung temperature, no? Isa sa factor, no? So when rock is warmed, it expands. So alam niyo naman 'yan, no? Sa rule sa physics. And when it cools, it contracts. Now, in some regions, rocks are heated to relatively high temperature. Sobrang init, sobrang taas ng temperature during the day. And then, cooled to much lower temperature during the night. Dahil naman, yun nga, dumilim na, no, nagbago na yung bumaba ang temperature. Now, the constant expansion and contraction of the rocks, no, yung pagbabago-bago ng temperature, no, ito yung naging dahilan, no, it may result in pieces being broken off. So the sudden change in temperature, definitely it weakens the integral structure of the rocks, resulting to weathering or the breaking of rocks. So rocks crumbled and break into fragments because they are subjected to alternating hot and cold temperature many times, no? And ayun nga, so during the day, again, no, siyempre taas ang temperature, no, directly natatamaan ng sunlight, no, ng etong ating or ng heat etong mga bato na to. And then kapag siyempre gabi na, no, so bumababa ang temperature. So dahil nasa paulit-ulit na pangyayari na 'yon, so maaring rumupok etong mga rocks na ito. And definitely or eventually, ayan, maghihiwalay sila, magbi-break etong mga bato. Alright, so we're done with physical weathering. Next is chemical weathering. Now, with regards to chemical weathering, so, ayun, kabaliktaran, definitely, ng physical weathering. So, it involves the chemical decomposition or rocks due to the chemical reaction of minerals within the rocks and the environment. No? So, halimbawa, yung tubig, no? Again, we are talking about chemical weathering, no? Chemical, may kinalaman yung mga chemicals na meron ang rocks as well as yung mga factors na pwede maka-apekto, no, sa weathering nitong mga rocks na to. So we have nga here the first example or first factor, no? We have water, and water is definitely, it is nature's versatile tool that can bring about chemical weathering. So there are other chemical compounds in water uh, that become the main agents of chemical weathering. Now, the molecules of some substance in rocks chemically combined with water molecules, and this process is called hydration. And from that, eventually these rocks will break. No? So water dissolves the soluble minerals present in rocks. Next is oxygen. Again, we are talking about chemical weathering. No? With regards to oxygen naman, ayan, so it facilitates the oxidation process in the presence of water in some metallic minerals. Now, oxygen chemically reacts with something else. So, yun nga, nagkakaroon ng oxidation process. Wherein, ayan, alam naman natin na ang mga rocks, yung iba ay merong metallic composition. May mga metallic minerals. Ibig sabihin, maaari silang magkaroon eventually ng kalawang. And dahil nga sa kalawang na ito, no, yan, kapag ito halimbawa nahaluan ng tubig as well as ng lalo na yung oxygen, no? Actually kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng kalawang hindi dahil sa tubig, kundi dahil na-expose nga sa oxygen etong ating mga metallic minerals na to. Kaya nagkakaroon ng kalawang, no? And dahil nga nagkakaroon ng kalawang, definitely pinaparupok niya, no? Pinaparupok nitong oxygen na to yung chemical composition na meron itong mga bato na to. And dahil nga pinaparupok, eventually, yan, anong mangyayari? Siyempre, magkakaroon ng weathering, no? Magkakaroon na magbe-break itong mga rocks na to, no? Shout out sa mga kalawang. Yan. Now, next we have here living organisms. So, organisms such as lichens or lichens produce weak acids that slowly corrode the rock. So, may mga organism kasi na ginagawang tirahan, no? Dito sila kumakapit sa mga bato. And since itong mga organism na to ay nagpo-produce ng mga acid, so definitely sisirain niya yung chemical composition na meron ang mga bato. And eventually nga parurupukin at mag-break. Ayan. Now, with regards to acid, ito, just for the sake of discussion lang naman, no? Ayan, maisingit lang din. Ayan, so we have acid rain. Now, acid rain, so compounds from burning coal, oil, and gas reacts chemically with water forming acid. And acid rain causes very rapid chemical weathering. Now, let's take as an example itong Statue of Liberty. Now, why is the Statue of Liberty green? Bakit nga ba green? Now, the Statue of Liberty is, yan, baka hindi nyo alam, it is made up of copper. Ito talaga dapat yung kulay. Ito talaga yung makikita nyo sana at dapat na makita nyong itsura ng Statue of Liberty. And, by the way, ang Statue of Liberty ay, if I'm not mistaken, ito ay regalo ng France sa Amerika during the time na sila ay kumbaga pinapalaya na nila ang Amerika kasi sinakop din nila, no, etong Amerika, no. Anyway, ayun nga, parang as a sign kumbaga, no, ng freedom ng Amerika, ayan. So nagbigay sila nagpatayo nito, no, ng Statue of Liberty na to. Ngayon, anyway, etong Statue of Liberty nga na to is made up of copper. And it is naturally the color of a shiny penny. But when copper is exposed to rain, it tarnishes. And this is chemical weathering, no? Nga lang ito kasi ay talagang sa metallic no, material, no? Now the rain contains copper carbonate. Kasi nga acid, no? Acid rain. Now, it may be sulfuric acid which gives it the green color. no? Dahil sa acid rain, dahil sa composition nitong acid rain na to, ito yung naging dahilan kung bakit nag-turn into green color, no? Or into green ang color ng Statue of Liberty, no? So it turns the statue into copper oxide and other elements due to oxidation. So ang tawag sa process na yun ay oxidation, no? So yan, maisingit lang with regards to acid, no, or acid rain. Now, next example of exogenic process is erosion. Ito, nabanggit ko rin naman na to kanina, no, erosion. So ang erosion again, no, uh, ang erosion ang nagiging dahilan kung bakit ang mga sediments na na-produce coming from weathering ay nagta-travel, nata-transport into other place, no? From one place to another, no? So erosion is the movement of sediments from one place to another. So iba-iba yung mga ginagamit nating medium, no? Or iba-ibang mga medium ang ginagamit dito sa erosion. Pwedeng wind, no? Meron tayong tinatawag na wind erosion. Ibig sabihin, through wind, no, maaring mag-travel, maaring ma-transfer from one place to another ang mga sediments, no? Yan, halimbawa sa yung mga kumbaga sediments na to na kumbaga powder form talaga, parang alikabok, no? O di naman kaya mga sand. Yan. So through wind erosion, maari siyang ma-transfer, maari siyang mapunta sa ibang lugar. Next, we have water erosion. Ito, kilalang-kilala talaga to, water erosion, wherein dahil nga sa tubig, halimbawa nagkaroon ng ulan, halimbawa sa kabundukan or kung saan mang anyong lupa na meron tayo, no? Yan. Kapag nagkaroon ng ulan, definitely ang tubig ay magsasama-sama. And kapag ito ay nagsama-sama, may certain paths lang sila na kung saan dun sila dadaan. And dahil nga dumadami itong tubig na ito, syempre lahat ng madaanan ng mga sediments or mga rocks nitong tubig na to, no? Ayan. Dahil dito, ayan, nagsama-sama sila, maaring mabitbit itong mga sediments na to, no, from its original place to other place, no? So that is water erosion. So rock pieces are carried downstream to suited depositional environment. So the water carry any size of rocks, and then along its way, maaring itong mga bato na to ay magbungguan, no, magkaroon ng collision, magkiskisan, and magproduce pa ng mas maraming small fragments of rocks. Ayan. Now, last example of exogenic process is mass wasting. Pag sinabi nating mass wasting, in general sense, it is the movement of a large mass of rock, soil, and debris downward due to the pull of gravity, no? Again, in general sense, yun yung konsepto nito, no? Yan, yung movement ng malaking large mass, no? Malaking parte ng kalupaan. Syempre sa lupa, kasama na dun syempre yung mga bato, no? And yung iba pang mga debris downward due to the pull of gravity. And best example of mass wasting ay yung landslide, no? Example lang yan, no, ng mass wasting, yung landslide. Wherein, bakit ba tayo nagkakaroon ng landslide? Kasi nga, minsan, ayan, halimbawa, kapag umulan, no, tag-ulan, syempre may mga bundok na sobrang na, kumbaga, naging saturated na, no, ayan, ng tubig. And dahil doon, lumalambot ang lupa, no, lalo na kung ang bundok ay wala nang gaanong mga puno, no? And dahil nga doon, ayan, nagkakaroon ng mass wasting, nagkakaroon ng landslide. Next, another example ng mass wasting ay yung mudslide. So ito naman talagang super saturated ng tubig ang lupa. And eventually, yan, napaka-destructive nito, no? Although lahat naman destructive itong type ng mass wasting na to. Yan. So guguho ang lupa, no? Magkakaroon putik, no? Yan, matindi. Mas matindi. And then we also have here slums. Pag sinabi naman nating slums, ibig sabihin, ayan, gaya lang nakikita nyo, kumbaga, bumababa yung level ng lupa. No? Ayan, katulad nito. Ayan. So, yung area dito ay, ayan, bumagsak na, kaya yung level ng lupa ay bumaba rin. No? Nagbago yung landscape. Now, ito, by the way, ito ay ihabol ko lang doon sa erosion. We have also what we call glacial erosion kasi. No? Glacial erosion. Paano na anong konsepto ng glacial erosion? Again, pag sinabi natin erosion, ito yung process na kung saan yung sediments natin ay nag-move from one place to another. Now, through or using ice or yung mga glacier nga, no? Glacier. Yan. So, maaari na yan. Guys, wait lang. Ayan. So, maaari na yung mga sediments ay mag-transfer din, mag-travel from one place to another sa pamamagitan ng mga yelo. So, it happens when the ice moves downhill, no? Pwede yan. Halimbawa, yung bundok na made up of yelo, di ba? Tapos nagkaroon ng avalanche. Yan. So, kasama yung mga sediments doon na babagsak, guguho. And plucks out chunks of rocks and causes scrapping between the ice and the rocks, no? O di naman yun. Pwedeng yung yelo as well as yung bato magkaroon ng collision, so mabibreak yung mga rocks, no? Magpuproduce ng sediments, no? So that is glacial erosion, no? Next, ayan. So ito yung dinagdag na natin dito sa lesson na to. We have deposition. So pag sinabi naman natin deposition, it is the laying down of sediments to its depositional environment or the final destination. That is deposition, no? So kung saan made-deposit or kung saan yung saan mapupunta, no? Final destination ng mga sediments. That is deposition. Now, the depositional environment can be continental, pwedeng coastal, or marine, no? So pwedeng ma-deposit itong mga sediments natin depende sa ayan, anong type ng depositional environment. Pag sinabi natin continental, definitely it includes streams, yung mga swamps na yan, caves, and even yan, mga desyerto, no? Pag sinabi naman natin coastal, kasama dito yung lagoons, mga estuaries, yung deltas. And kapag sinabi naman natin marine, it includes slopes and bottom of the ocean or mas kilala as abyssal zone. Ibig sabihin, ito na yung pinaka mababa, pinaka malalim na area ng dagat, no, ng karagatan. Yan, that is abyssal zone. Yan. So with that, no, actually that is the end of this video lesson, no. So key points, no. And again, weathering, it is the process of breaking down of rocks into smaller pieces called sediments. Erosion naman, it is the removal of weathered rocks downslope from the original place of weathering, no. So movement of sediments from one place to another. And then last is deposition, the laying down of sediments to its depositional environment or final destination, no. So that's it for this video lesson. Yan. So yan, may susunod pa guys, no. Thank you for listening. Bye.